Hey,
How are we
good
doing?
morning. Good evening. I'm really well, thank you, Lucy. How are you?
I'm good. It's 5 p.m. on a bank holiday Monday, so never been better myself.
Okay, well, at least you've had, some time to yourself and a day to be able to relax and think about our first ever podcast, which is
Oh, it's
so
instant. Oh my god.
exciting. So, welcome everybody to the Purple Patch Sales Edge podcast. I'm Danielle Dacunha-Howarth, and I'm here with my fantastic co-host, the lovely Lucy Lee, LLL, as we like to call her. And we're really excited to have you here and to be kicking this off. Anything you want to say, Lucy?
No, just really excited to be here. It's been a long time in the planning and kind of excited to kick things off, share our insights and learn how to live a life by design in the wonderful world of sales.
Yeah. And we spent a huge amount of time just trying to figure this out. What is this? Why are we doing this? And I think really it's just a great way for us to share a lot of our experience of what we're seeing in the field. We are both in enablement, revenue enablement, but also still in sales very much ourselves as well. And so that's really why we wanted to start this podcast. We wanted to bring our point of view to this industry. We're incredibly passionate about this industry. And so, I think episode number one, it was in fact your idea, Lucy, wasn't it? Episode number one.
I thought it'd be a good idea
Yeah,
because we actually haven't had this discussion, I don't think, either. So this will quite literally be fresh off the record as
it will.
to why we got into sales.
Yeah.
That is number one topic.
That is the number one topic today, is why and how did we even get into this industry that we call the sales profession? The sales profession. So, Lucy, why don't you kick us off? Why don't you tell us your journey into sales?
Who has to kick me off? Okay, so I think I need to rewind you back to potentially my school years, where my
Okay.
entire school report was Lucy is two things. She's too enthusiastic and she needs to think before she speaks. And that was it from probably 4 to 18. My mum had to sit through that. My dad went through the school reports and went, great, can we just tone it down a little bit? Can we put our hand out and be like, oh, stop doing that? And eventually I ended up being a kids coach and a receptionist at David Lloyd Leisure, which of course is what I would say one of the most proficient health and fitness clubs in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
And I was fortunate enough at that point, I was really young, I was really late teens, early 20s, where they volunteered to pay for my personal training. So I went through all of that. And I remember there came a sales job up and I was like, oh, that looks cool. I could do that. So I went for the job and they actually declined me. And I was like,
How dare they? Who were these
I know.
people?
So what? Do you know what they missed out on? So I actually got declined from that job. So they said no. So I carried on being I did my PT stuff, stayed on reception and kids coach. And then eventually we came to Australia on a gap year in 2014. And a lot of people who end up in sales, I think it's fair to say I fell into sales. And my gym sales career is kind of where it started and became very good very quickly. There was 30 of us across Australia and New Zealand. And it was, I would describe now, 15 years on, as almost like an old school sales environment. But that's where it all started for me. What about you?
Oh, God, I mean, I'm a little bit older than you, Lucy. Not much older, but a little bit older than you. What's really interesting is that my first kind of exposure to sales was my dad. So my dad was actually a sales rep in the UK. My dad sold everything, and my dad could sell ice to Eskimos. I've absolutely no doubt about it. So, yeah, my dad used to sell. My dad was a real door-to-door salesman. Like, my dad has sold everything from women's fashion wear.
Oh,
For
wow.
kind of unique brands, straight out of India. And I remember in the school holidays going with him on business, and he'd literally pick an area in the UK, get in the car, book accommodation for a week and kind of be there and literally walk into boutique fashion shops and say, can I speak to the proprietor, and then whip out all the clothes from the back of his car. Like that's like, my first kind of experience of sales was watching my dad. My dad was a very successful salesperson. But of course, like, I never thought about it as a career, because when we're at school and when we're having these conversations with, let's call them careers advisors, it's all the basics. It's, do you want to be a teacher? Do you want to be a fireman or a firewoman? Do you want, like, it's a very, do you want to work in administration? It was these very kind of basic jobs. Because, and it makes sense, because when you're at school, or if you're going to university, I mean, university, obviously, college, you can expand your topics a lot more. But it's kind of like this. Yeah, nobody ever said sales to me. And I struggled with that.
People would resonate with that. Do you remember, like, year 9 when you go into the careers office and it'd be like,
even picking your GCSEs, picking which GCSEs you wanted to kind of go from like 10 down to 6 and then add an extra one on. Like, how do you even do that at that age? And then, let's go to college and pick that topic. And then university, where you're going to get into debt of £9,000 every year. Like, what is it that you want to do? So nobody talked to me about sales at all. And, I suppose, when I think about true, and sales comes in many forms, as we kind of know. So I think for me, when I went to do my management scheme with Debenhams, that was kind of my first, calling into sales, which was B2C sales, right? And I ran an entire shop floor in a Debenhams store, in their flagship store in Leeds, in Yorkshire. And it was weird, because you were influencing sales, but it wasn't direct sales. You were influencing the footfall, you were influencing the things that people would see. And I got an incredible amount of sales kind of management experience, and looking at the P&L sheets and all that kind of stuff. It was an incredible course. But I knew very early on that retail sales was definitely not where I wanted to be. Particularly
great fashion sense, though.
Oh yeah, great fashion sense, great, like, color, style, and fit. And then I kind of went on I left there, and I went on a bit of I'm just going to apply for all kinds of different jobs, from BMW to, gosh, I think I even applied to be an air stewardess, I think, because the thought of traveling was great. And I actually ended up going into real estate, which, again, loved real estate, but very different kind of sales, because huge investment, you're selling direct to consumer. Can you truly influence the sale of a house? Yes, but it's a very emotional purchase, right? So it's very, very different. But I used to value property. I used to win property onto the market. And I think that's where I really started to play around with my sales skills of, they're going to get 3 people out to value this property. How am I going to get them to go with me? And really starting to dig into the tactics I was using. I used to love going and shadowing other valuers, right, to see what they did, and their tactics. So I would say that was like my first real kind of sales job. And I hi Nala.
Nala thought she'd make an appearance. Shut up, naughty. I think almost we followed a pretty similar trajectory, almost probably 5-10 years apart, right? Like, we've both done real estate, but both started in gyms, and then we've gone to real estate, and then somehow we've ended up in technology along the way.
Bonkers. Absolutely.
I remember
bonkers.
your move. I remember going into your move where you were based up in Yorkshire, and when I was in Express Estate Agency in Manchester, going to like valuations, being like, your move of being in Express Estate Agency going in next. Like, you always get 3 or 4 people outright to value the property. So I think we probably followed a pretty similar trajectory there for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And then the GFC hit, 2007, 2008. Property market crashed and crumbled, and before you know it, you're kind of looking for another job. And that's really when I got into financial services and wealth management. And then through that was really when I kind of got involved in starting my own business, which was creating a technology suite for wealth managers. And then, I'm selling everything. I'm selling into, the likes of Fidelity Funds Network to get an API into the software that we've built. And I'm selling direct to other wealth management firms. And I think that's really where I started to hone my craft, right? And I used to read all the books, and I used to test and try all these different techniques. And sales technology back then was just, you had LinkedIn, and LinkedIn was still incredibly new and building. It really was the phone and email. That was it. Yeah. And then, I suppose from there, moved to Australia, worked for LinkedIn, and obviously helped to launch LinkedIn Sales Navigator into the Asia Pacific market. And then, continued the journey into enablement, revenue operations, just because I love the profession. I think it's just fascinating to see, where it's kind of got to. But did I actually set out to go into sales? No. I think you and I know that the people that we speak to in sales didn't set out really to do it. I think, yes, you might go into a business management and marketing degree that could lead you more in that direction. But it's crazy, right? Because every company has a sales department. Bonkers.
Every company has a sales department. I think I remember getting into, so after I did my stint in real estate, when I came to Australia, I ended up doing a bit of recruitment and then went into HubSpot. And I remember thinking, how did I not find this 5 years ago? Like, what on earth was I doing in B2C? And it's like, ding, ding, ding. And now it's like you speak to these young people coming into sales and they're complaining on being like in six figures at 21, 22. And I'm like, that still makes my mind go bang. I'm like, how are you not okay with that? Like, it's insane. So it's a very different, I wish I'd seen it earlier, but I also wish I hadn't, because all the industries that, we've both been through now are essentially the reason we actually know our reason why. And I think, and we'll probably move into this another day, but so many people get stuck in tech so early and then end up just like chasing the money, which probably actually leads us into the next conversation as to like what made you want to stay in sales and like actually carve that out.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, I didn't really have much choice. I had to sell my product, right? Like I had to get out there and sell it. And I just, like I enjoy people. And I think in sales, you get to meet so many different people in the day-to-day, from, if you're picking up the phone and you're prospecting and you're hitting the phones hard and you're chatting to all kinds of different people to get to the right people. And then when you are in a sales cycle, you can meet anywhere depending on, the size of deal. You could meet anywhere from 3 people up to 15 people in a deal if it's a huge deal. And you're going to be working, again, depending on your deal size, anywhere between like 10 and 15 deals at any one point.
Yep.
And I love that. Like I love, it's communication, and I love communication, and I really enjoy people, and I enjoy all the different stages of a deal, whether we are solutioning and ensuring that the solution is right for you and making sure that that fits with all the different stakeholders, whether that is negotiating at the pointy end of a deal, whether that is, can you come in and do a really big presentation to the user group, right, that are going to be engaging with this technology. And I think that's what I really love about sales. I know that people say, oh, it's the money, but it's not. I think the money is a byproduct of the hard effort and hard yards and hard work and pressure that you
100%.
Put yourself under, right? Because there's no other role like sales. You have a number over your head. You have to hit it. You have to strive to hit it. And it's very evident if you are not achieving your number. And so I think the money really comes as a byproduct of taking on that responsibility, that effort, that drive, and the repetitiveness, right? There's also repetitiveness in sales too, that you have to kind of be okay with. So I don't know if I answered your question there, but that's why I think I've always stayed in sales and why I'm so passionate about it as a profession. yeah, that's my point of view, I suppose.
I agree. I almost feel like a lot of people go into it for the money, especially if you're in that like really like young 20s. You know, you might not really know your why, and I almost feel like that's okay. Like, go and earn some money. It's, you know, sales is one of those things that also doesn't discriminate. It doesn't matter what background you're from. It doesn't matter what experience you've had. Like, as long as you've got someone who's willing to give you an opportunity, like, you're okay in sales, as long as you can drive that consistency and that drive, which actually a lot of people, I was reading ages ago, and it was like it's almost like an avoidance of failure rather than a want for success. And the people that have had to work a little bit harder to get that are almost better at that anyway. So that's fine if you find the why of why you want to be in sales later on. But initially, if you're driven by money, we know later on in 3, 4, 5, 6 years' time, that's probably not your real reason why, but it was absolutely my why initially. It was just like, I can bag a lot of money here and, you know, go on 5 holidays a year and have 0 outgoings and live all those really nice things. I think one of the things that I know you've been a really good influence on me as well is just finding your reason why outside of sales, because that's really important. Like, what costs 0 to be happy? Like, I think that's one of my biggest things as well, and that's the life by design, right?
Yeah, and it's it's really interesting that, yeah, and again, I love your honesty there. That it definitely was the money in the beginning, because when you compare what you could be doing at that age,
Yeah.
whether that's going and, you know, working in hospitality or retail or anything like that, like, you're not going to earn as much money. But yeah, it's going to be a hard slog as well. And I think that's are people ready for that, particularly in your early sales career? That's when you work really hard.
Yeah.
That's when you are the bottom of the run. That's when you are doing the cold calling, and putting in the really, really, really hard yards. Yeah.
I remember I used to have to, when I was in the state agency, I started, like you said, at the bottom of the pile. I used to have to log when I used to go for a wee. And I was like when I went for a wee, when I did anything, it was like you log it on the dialer, because if you weren't doing that serious call level a day and those booking numbers, you know, why didn't you book that, came down on your head pretty hard, which is why I think it baffles me these days. We're like, I think I need a bean bag with my lunch break and my free this and free that. It's like, guys, just pick up the phone. Like, you'll be all right. I promise. Just pick up the phone initially.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Lucy, you know, you started in like a, you know, fitness industry, which was B2C, and the numbers there are really big too. You know, you've got some really tough numbers to hit. Then you ended up in technology sales, and tell me about, like, what was the easiest part of entering sales and what was the hardest part of entering sales for you?
The easiest part about entering sales for me was like the people aspect. Like, I knew how to build rapport. Like, I've worked since I was 12. Like, I always had conversations with people older than me. So the aspect of having conversations was never a concern. The hardest bit about it for me is, as you know, I'm all in or all out. So if I missed a target or like didn't have consistency that month, it would punish me, like it hurt me, and it would really bother me. So the hardest thing for me was to have to drive some form of consistency, and all of a sudden realize that, like, I think the question you asked initially about how do we get in sales, like, I clearly remember my mum saying to me, you can't take that job at Fitness First, it's commission only. So I almost feel like initially it was like, okay, great, like, it's all about people, I can do that bit. But then actually a few years later you realize it's actually not about how much you can talk, it's about how much you can listen. So all of a sudden I realized there's actually a skill to that job. So that was the hardest bit. It was like, oh, there's a skill to this. You're not just born with it. I can chat, but how do you now curve that into a career and move that forward? And I think that took a while. That definitely took a little bit of time to understand the psychology behind people, why, and I haven't even got it all now, but like really honing that of why people buy something and understanding how you can actually help someone just by asking really good questions, I thought was really powerful.
Yeah. That's a really, really good reflection. And yeah, it's interesting because you mentioned there commission only. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I think there's a real in the industry at the moment. It's quite interesting to watch as we know, kind of in the last 12 months, there's been a bit of a level set in the industry
Yeah.
because we had a lot of we had a lot of redundancies in the industry. I think the outputs of that have definitely been a leveling of wages and salaries as well, which probably needed to happen. You know, there was
Yeah.
people were getting paid a heck of a lot of money as their base salary.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of commentary around, you know, sales and commission payments. And, you know, for me, like, I love being 100% commission based. It's what I am now, right? I am solely in charge of the money that I choose to bring in to my business. And I think you have to always remember that as well, is that you have to be okay with being the master of your destiny, particularly when it comes to the amount of money that you can earn. Because in sales, there is often, particularly with accelerators and things like that, you know, you can earn a lot of money. There's no stopping you. There's actually very, very rare that a company would put caps on things as well. So, but yeah, there's peaks and troughs too. You know, you have to be able to manage yourself and manage the lumpiness. And yeah, I think it's quite interesting that psychology as well of, you know, I think I was absolutely okay with being the master of my destiny and how much I got paid. And I think that's a really big indicator for me with salespeople as well, as to how are you really in this to be successful, or are you really in this because you can actually get quite a decent base salary to kind of live on anyway? So
Gotcha.
yeah, I don't know. It's quite interesting that you called that out, the commission
I
payment.
feel like
Are your
it's
mum
one of, and I've
freaking
said
out
it a
about
lot.
it?
Yeah, and I've said it a lot, and you've heard me say this a numerous amount of times now over the last 6 months. Like, we're in 2024. It's not 2020. It's not 2022 where COVID and everyone just bought software. So it's almost like, now pick your pain. Like, do you want to work for the big corporate with the red tape? Do you want to work for the scale up to startup where everything's really messy and it's founder run? Or do you want to run your own pipeline? There is a pain to every option that you essentially take. I think, and those things can change, right? But I think there's always going to be one of those things. So being commission only it's a driver. Like, that's one of those things where you just like, I can just literally do what I want and not have to report into anyone. But that comes at a cost of being like, got no pipeline this week. What do I do next?
Yeah, and being very aware of that. Yeah, and obviously our journeys, how Lucy and I met, for those of you that don't know us, is that, you know, I know that I'm a great salesperson and I love sales. But I'm a very consultative salesperson, I would say. Like, I'm, you know, if this isn't right for me and it's not right for you, let's not continue this and let's not fudge my pipeline.
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
But I think what I loved was that, you know, sales, particularly over the last 8 to 10 years, has really changed because of the technology that we use, because of the access that we have to buyers, because of the amount of technology that is now there and available to different companies and different people doing jobs within those companies. It's, you know, it's complicated. It's a lot more complicated than it used to be, where you just had a phone, a yellow pages, an email. There's so much more that we can be doing. And I think for me, because I just really love seeing people succeed, that's how I transitioned more into that enablement side of the business. I enjoy process. I enjoy skills development. I love coaching people. It's one of my most favorite things to do. And now in the kind of revenue operations side as well, is how do we merge those two parts of the business? And ultimately that's how you and I met, because, you know, you came and joined me in my team, which was amazing.
Should we explain it? Because it was basically serendipity. Serendipity?
It was very serendipitous.
Wasn't
Yeah.
it?
So I had a role from an Asia Pacific sales enablement manager role. I had a lot of interest in that role, and Lucy came through in that process. And I was just so impressed with you all the way through. I'm going to blow smoke up your ass now. But there was you were very green, like, you know, taking it, you coming in to run an Asia Pacific enablement role where you would have had AEs,
Most mature market at that point.
CSMs in the most mature market of this particular organization. I'm like, my God, like I know that you're going to be amazing, but I knew that putting you into this role as your first gig would not be right for you. And I also had this other role that was kind of bubbling in the background. I was waiting for budget to be approved, which was basically to drive enablement for the SDR org, which would be the perfect entry for you. And, it came down to, I had to let you down very gently, but I needed to keep you I needed you to know that when this role became available, you're the first person that I would want to put into it. And that was a really horrible situation to be in. Because I didn't want you to think, oh, F off, Danielle. You've turned me down for this role.
I remember saying to you, I really appreciate transparency. Like, what would you advise me I do now? And you went, so what you need to do, Lucy, is you need to continue to do what you do. You need to continue to hit your quota and just don't do anything. So what did I do? I quit. It's like, I'm so out of my current role. So I just left, and I was like, I just got a really good feeling. I was going back to England anyway. You were in England at the same time.
I was.
And you emailed me, and we were like, you said there was a certain number of things to him, and this is like a true reflection of your coaching perspective. You're like, I need to see this and this. So off I go, log into LinkedIn. I learn a million different things. I report back to you weekly, and you suggest catching up in Manchester. So we're both obviously English. We're both living in Australia, but we happen to be, because of COVID, back at home with our friends and family at that point. She said, why don't we catch up at lunch? So we went for lunch, and I'm like, oh my God, okay. And you went to me, so what's your notice period? And I was like, oh shit, I've got two options here. I absolutely owned the fact that I've just quit when you told me not to, or I go, I've got 4 weeks. And I just went, I just left. What do you mean? I was like, oh, well, I'm either in or I'm out. And I really trusted the process, and I was okay with whatever happened. But yeah, I didn't quite take your advice on that one.
No, he didn't. That was a bit of a shock. And then I was like, holy smokes, I definitely need to get her into this role. Otherwise, yeah. So, no, it was great. And the work that we've continued to do together has just been incredible. And so, why, I suppose this is a really nice segue now, why are we here? Why have we started this podcast? And really, again, we started this podcast because we're incredibly passionate about helping sales professionals to achieve not just professional growth, but personal growth as well. We've kind of alluded to it today, right? Sales is hard, sales is stressful, sales is, it's ups and downs. It's also quite an interesting, there's many different areas that you can go with a career path with sales as well. So, as we had our Miro board up, our favorite thing to use, yes, Miro, you can sponsor us if you want to, we sat down, we put all these different topics, and it was just really evident that the doing something and talking about career planning in sales, personal branding, your own leadership in sales, but also tying that into the latest and greatest kind of really tactical tips, methodologies, how to use the technology that you're being provided in the place that you work, right? And also super keen on getting some industry experts in as well. We've got a great network of people from all the way across the revenue function, from SDR right the way through to customer success, because we engage with all these different parts of the business. Just to give a bit of some diverse insights and practical tips, but it'd be funny as well, because we do like a bit of banter, don't we, Lucy Lee?
We're actually pretty funny, I think.
I think we're pretty funny, definitely.
We are.
I think we're pretty funny. And and again, that's the industry puts you in all these different situations that you can kind of laugh about in the future as well. I've had some of my funniest moments in sales. But we want this to be about the community as well, though, right, Lucy? We want people to engage with us.
100%. We want questions. We want everything to come through for us to really hear from the people that we're speaking to.
Yes. So we what we'd really like, I had this idea originally when we started this, is we want it to be a little bit like the agony ants of sales, right? So
Send me a
yeah,
question.
we'd love for you to email voice notes. We would love voice notes, right? You can be anonymous if you want, or you can tell us where you are and who you are and where you're calling from. But yeah, we'd love some, like, what's happening in a deal, like what's happening right now. We'd love to give some kind of deal advice, which would be quite cool. Little agony ants of sales. Are you having problems in your sales career with your manager, with your peers, with other people across the business? We'd love to hear that. Are you stuck in a rut at the moment and need a bit of help to get out?
Are you
So,
about to be on PIP? We've had that before.
Great one. Yeah. Are you?
We're
Yeah.
about
How's
to
your
performance
performance?
plan. Come on,
Yeah,
we can get you out of that. We can help
we
you.
can. We're very good at that. We've helped many people get off a PIP.
Exactly.
So yeah, what we've done is we've stood up a WhatsApp. So what you can do is you can, again, message or voice note. I'd really like some voice notes.
Think I want a voice note. Hang on, we've got to say, like, what do we want them to include that's like a non-negotiable on this voice note?
Okay.
Maybe like
Your name.
like what's their name of? We don't have to give their name, do they?
No,
So
they
like,
don't have to.
okay, so you've got to give when you do your voice note. You have to give the one sentence on what you would have been if you hadn't been in sales.
Yes.
And then give your question and your like help as to what you need.
Okay. All right. Let's do that again then. So if you are going to voice note or messages, what do we want them to tell us, Lucy?
Tell us what you need. Is it help on P Club? Is it advice through Life by Design? Is it how to manage a micromanager? What is it that you need help with in your sales career?
Yeah. And tell us what you would have been if you hadn't have got into sales, or where your career was heading. Yeah. Before you got into
let's
sales.
end it with what would you have been doing if you hadn't have ended up in sales?
Yes. Definitely. I like it. So you can do that. You can send that through on WhatsApp. The number is +61 0435 728 511. Sorry, we don't have a really trendy kind of number for you, but it's also on Spotify, and you'll be able to see it on our website as well. So please do engage with us. And if there's any topics that you'd like us to cover as well that you'd be super interested in. So, Lucy, I suppose as we kind of sign off from our first podcast, what would you have been doing if you hadn't gone into sales? What do you think that might have been?
My dream job, like not boring job, my dream job was to be on CBBC presenting. That was the job. Like I wanted to be the Jake Humphreys, the Fern Cotton, anyone else in that world. That was my dream job. What about you?
I mean, I'd have been a singer, definitely. Yeah.
And I've heard you sing a song, and you've got some pipes.
Yeah, I really wish I had followed that trajectory a little bit more. Now the only people that get to hear my singing voice are my husband and my dog. So lucky them. So listen, thanks so much for joining us today. Don't forget to subscribe so you never ever miss an episode as we embark on this journey. So until next time, keep striving for excellence in your sales career. We look forward to hearing you. What's our next topic, Lucy?
Our next topic is industries that make you tick.
Industries that make you tick. Okay, yeah. I like it. Industries that make you tick is going to be our next episode. And bye for now. I'm going to stop.